grab a seat. Oh man, don't you love to come to church and hear a positive message, to have a message of hope? Because you have all these messages being told to you all week long about how hard life is, how scary it is, and you're like, I just want to escape and come to church. Am I the only one? Everyone's looking around like, no, that's not you. You hear something, it's good news. You want to hear a good news message? Well, that's not today, unfortunately. Today we've been going through the past few weeks about the changing world. And the specific changes I've been talking about aren't good. 2 weeks ago I talked about COVID and how COVID has changed our world. But even though the world's changed, our faith hasn't, but it has definitely changed things. Last week I talked about race and how I believe race has changed. The discussion about race has changed very drastically, but our faith hasn't changed. Now today I want to talk about probably the scariest thing that, in my opinion, that has changed just in the past couple of years. And that's our whole society. Our institutions are weaker than they were just a few years ago. All of our institutions are. Every one of them. Now, when I say institution, I'm not talking about like a mental ward. I'm not talking about like a college university. I'm talking about the pillars in a society that give a society stability and structure. I'm talking about those organizations and those groups that give us confidence because they also help direct the way we think, the way we receive information. It affects our behavior. It is said that every healthy society has 7 key institutions, primary institutions, and you want your institutions to be strong. And you want your people to have confidence in these institutions. Here are the 7. Number 1 is the government. We might complain about the government, especially around tax time, but everyone wants to have a government. You want to have someone who's protecting us, who's looking out for us, who's delivering justice. The media, number 2. How do we receive information? How do we process that information? Are we in a bubble? Or how do we learn what's going on over there and around the world? Number 3 is education. Your educational system is an institution that is greatly influential and affects how people think. How do we think and what do we think about? Number 4, this one might seem like an odd one, but it's definitely a very important institution for society, is our celebration. What we celebrate and how we celebrate. Are we in coliseums cheering on as gladiators battle it out? Are we cheering as someone hits a home run? Are we vegging in front of the television watching some Netflix show? It shapes our culture. It shapes you and I. And number, what am I on? 4, 5? I have a note taker. I'm on number 5. There you go. And that's your economics. How do we exchange and how do we do interactions with each other and what does that look like? And number 6 is the structure of the family, the institution. That's the one you may have even heard the word institution connected to before. We talk about the institution of marriage, It greatly affects everyone's life. Perhaps more than any other. I bet if you even thought through what really affects your life, it's probably been your family more than anything else. And finally, religion, the church, or what a community, what a society believes in, and what are its morals and its virtues, and what are its hopes and aspirations. These are the institutions of a healthy society. And bad news first, we'll get to the good news in a minute, but the bad news is all of our institutions are weaker today than they were just a few years ago. Every single one. Or at least the distance between our people and our institutions has widened. We don't trust our institutions like we did just a while back. It's happened everywhere throughout our country. Today, do you trust your government? I'm shocked. I never dreamed I would see someone holding a sign that says, defund the police. Do they not know what the word defund means? Get rid of our police? Really? Yeah, you have some that we don't trust our government. We don't want it. Get rid of it. Burn it down. We have some today on both sides that look at the government today and go, I no longer believe in it. And we've always made comments. We've always talked about politicians. Oh, you can't trust a politician. Oh, that government went as little as possible. But has there ever been a time in your life that you've distrusted the government more than now? You look at the media. Oh boy. We now acknowledge it's so biased that we decide who we're going to listen to, and we listen to whichever side we want, or we just stop listening to it altogether because we know it's nothing but a bunch of lies. The distrust and the distance between the people and this institution has widened. It's gotten bigger. We don't trust our own media. Education, surely we love our schools, don't we? We're very spoiled being in Southeast Missouri and Dexter. We're spoiled in having a good school, but across our country right now, there is a battle, a war taking place on what's going to be taught in schools. Laws being passed in different states that contradict other states about whether or not this will be taught or this. What is our history? How do we think whenever we interact with the distance between our people and our institutions has widened. You look at our celebrations even. Do you know that sports ratings are now at an all-time low? Why? Why did people quit watching football? Why did we quit watching sports? Because we don't trust them anymore. Because it became political. And because the distance between the people and the institutions, it's widened. You look at even our economics. And right now we have people going, I think capitalism's run its course. I want socialism now. And then we have over here, we have people that are going, I don't like the fact that this group has been so successful, that these certain companies have. And we need to take away what they have and give it to someone else. And so we have this battle going on economically, and the trust that we have in our economics, it's causing a lot of uncertainty as the relationship between the people and institutions is wider. You look at our families right now, and I'll just be honest with you, I am stunned and heartbroken at the state of so many of our families throughout our country. I'm heartbroken. I was talking to a young man this last week. We sat down, we were having a good conversation. He started telling me about his family. Only because I was asking. I thought that's what you're supposed to ask each other about. So, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? And who's your parents? What's this? As he started talking about his family, he looked at me and he said, the only thing my family has taught me is that all relationships are temporary. Oh, I guess in a sense he's right, but he wasn't talking about a certain sense. He was saying, you can't trust family. So many households are broken and dismantled, and boy, we even have a large group of people that are wanting to redefine what family is. What makes a family a family? Not just what makes one in practice, what's even the goal? What's the ideal? It's shifting and changing, and the relationship between our people and our institutions is widening. And finally, the institution of religion and faith. I always cringe when someone says, I don't believe in organized religion. I'm like, oh, do you really want, you don't want to live in a society that has no government, even if the government drives you nuts, right? Do you really want a society that has no church? No organized community of believers that are trying to express faith and to live out the principles of faith? No, you want that. And yet, today, that distance, it's widening. Our people don't trust religion. They don't trust church. And when there's a distrust of institutions, intelligent people know what happens. Your entire society breaks down. Violence, bloodshed, sorrow, misery. Aren't you glad you came to church right now? That's the state. That's what's changed. And it is kind of alarming. But I have a good message for you. I want to look at a song that was sung for the king. Psalm chapter 20. This song was sung for King David by not just soldiers, but by all of the citizens of Israel. And they would sing this song before he would go off to war. Psalm chapter 20. I would have just bounced to the most important part of the song, but there's one part I want you just to ponder at. So I'm going to read the entire thing. I'll read the first few verses just to make one point, and then we'll continue. Psalm, here we go. Let's sing. And who are we singing to? I just told you. The King, King David, yeah. So this you, the you is David. They're singing to a man. They're singing and praying not to him, but praying for him in the midst of the song. They sing, may the Lord answer you when you are in distress, O King. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. Can you imagine all of us singing this to President Biden? All of us showing up to the White House saying, oh, King, we want you to be successful. And they're singing this to their king, to their institution. And then they sing, may he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. I was going to just skip over that, but as I was looking at this passage, I thought I can't skip over it because this is important for all of us to remember that only a fool wants their institution to fail. All the people get together and they know if the king is successful, our enemies die and we live. If our king fails, we die and our enemies live. O King, may you be successful. Go out and triumph. Do your thing. We want you to win. Go and do it. And they're singing this song to their king. Only a fool wants every institution in their society to be burnt to the ground. And I know right now we have some fools that are looking around going, burn it all down. I'm like, no, even in a horrible society, you don't burn down all your institutions. You might try to shape them and mold them, but definitely in a decent society. You keep your institutions intact. It's what all of us should want. And then he says this, and this is the heartbeat. Here's the message. Verse 6. Now this I know. The Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots, and some in horses. But we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Some trust in chariots, and some in horses. Some trust in governments. Some trust in political parties. Some trust in economics. Some trust in certain economic systems. Some trust in education. Some trust in churches. Some trust in their family. But we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Do you know what that reminds me of? This song that they're singing to David, going, we want you to be successful, and it's not about you, it's about our king, our God, our real king, and they're singing this. It reminds me of when David went out on the battlefield to take on Goliath. Remember that story? And David goes out, and there's either a 9-foot giant or an 8-foot giant, depending on how much their cubits were. And he goes out, regardless, the guy can slam dunk a basketball without jumping. That's impressive. And David comes out, and he's walking down with a slingshot. He's got his stones, and he yells, I'm going to cut your head off. And Goliath yells, you bring a dog to fight me? And then David screams, it must have been a young man, right? You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord our God. You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord our God. It's like the same message from David's childhood now has been transposed and now is being sung to him as he is going out into battle. Everyone knows we don't trust in this world's weapons. Our hope, our trust is in an enduring God. Our institutions are weaker today than they were 2 years ago. It would be hard to argue otherwise. But it hasn't changed who's really in charge in our world. There's a story about two different Christian leaders during a horrible time, the fall of Rome. Rome was having a lot of difficulties. Their institutions were falling apart, and most of it appeared to be inward. They were doing it to themselves. And as Rome is collapsing, it says that barbarians were even attacking. And they came in and they sacked Rome. Barbarians made it all the way to the city and they sacked it. And barbarians aren't crazy people. Barbarians are anyone that's not Romans. And barbarians came and they attacked Rome. Now there are two Christian leaders during this time that were very both disturbed by what had happened. And they were waiting to see disaster come about. So when your institutions fall, intelligent people know we're in trouble. We are in so much trouble. The first man, his name is Jerome. Jerome was a Christian leader who's most famous for writing a book called the Latin Vulgate. It is the Latin version of the New Testament. People had quit speaking Greek, and so he wrote in Latin for the common people the New Testament. He even translated the Old Testament for a Latin version of Scripture. When this Christian leader saw that Rome was going to fall, he got scared. He fled. He left Rome, and he went to Bethlehem. And he found a cave and he went into the cave, and he hid for his life. Oh no, everything's falling apart. So he went and he hid until Rome fell, and he ended up dying years later. At the same time, there was a second man, Augustine. Now, Augustine is most famous for writing a book called The Confessions. It's a story about his life. And it was a story that anyone could relate to. You'd read about his story about coming to Christ, and you're like, that's me. I need to come to Christ. It was just a really good book. And he's this powerful Christian leader that was shaping the way Christians thought. And he too became nervous that Rome was going to fall. He saw it coming. And he went, oh no, this is going to be terrible. Bloodshed, death, poverty. The entire region is going to be devastated. But instead of fleeing, instead of going into some cave and hiding, Augustine pulled out a pen and wrote a long book. I mean, it's long. In the English version, it's like 900 pages. It's this huge book. And he even made fun about how long it was at the end of the book. And he writes this book about human life called The City of God. And the City of God is supposed to be about Rome. And he wrote about how societies rise to power, and then they fall. And they rise, and then they fall. And they rise, and then they fall. But God's kingdom lasts forever. What Christian leader will you follow? When you become scared and nervous, and when you look out and go, oh no, our institutions, oh no, life is changing. And it could. We could screw our heads on right and everything's okay. It could go off into the deep end. Regardless, I want you to know this. You don't have to hide in a cave. Changing times are a call for courage for Christians. To come out and to say, this world will change. My God does not. And some trust in institutions, but I trust in the name of the Lord our God. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but I trust in the Lord. Be courageous. Be brave. And then this song ends, and it ends, they are brought to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm. Lord, give victory to the King. Answer us when we call. And it ends with this confidence that our God is a God of stability. He's a rock you can stand on. And whether you're scared because of the news, or you're scared because of your own personal situation, or you're nervous because your life seems to be falling apart, don't trust in the things that this world trusts in. You'll be let down every time. Don't trust in me. Don't trust in your family. Don't trust in your education. Place your trust in something that will last. I had a really cool thought that may not come out for a sermon, but I'm going to share it with you anyways today. It's just the truth. So much of your life is nothing more than faith. You've never been around the world. You don't know that China's there. You just trust that the maps are right. You trust Google Maps, and you trust that people aren't lying to you. You didn't know that someone wasn't going to shoot you when you walked in church right now. Someone could have. The other Darren could have gone nuts on us. We don't know. We don't know. We had faith. There's just some trust. And so much of these faith and trust things we don't even think about. But that's most of your life is faith and trust. What do you actually know? So much of our relationships and our interactions and our thoughts and our theories, it's just faith. And it affects so much of our life. Where do you have most of your faith? Where is it? Is it in just society and what everyone's telling you? Or is it in this God who is mighty and powerful and stable? And his ways never, ever change. And so my encouragement today, as I went through and just went, wow, we've had some radical changes here. My encouragement is, yes, your world will change, but your faith won't. So be confident and trust in the Lord. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you so much for being a God that is faithful to us. Lord, you've never given us a legitimate reason to not trust you. The reality is, the reason we hesitate to put faith in you is not because you're not trustworthy. It's because we have troubles trusting ourselves. We don't know if we're ready to follow you. Lord, I know that there's some even in the room that have been thinking about making decisions for you. And I pray, Lord, that we would learn that you are worth following. You're worth believing in and surrendering to. I love you, Lord. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we pray. Amen. Jesus, he's about ready to die. It was the Thursday night, right before he was going to be arrested. Because he knew what was about ready to take place, John 13 says that he got up from the table, got a towel, he put it around his waist. He filled up a water basin and he went and knelt down and he began to wash his disciples' feet. It's a beautiful act of love, as this is a task that definitely the head of the house would not be doing. It would be a lowly servant. And as he went through and washed everyone's feet, it's interesting when you think about who's actually at the table with Jesus. Whose feet did he wash? He washed the feet of Matthew, a tax collector, someone that no one respected for being someone who probably was cheating his own people. He washed the feet of Simon, the zealot, someone who had been devoting his life to terrorism. But even more shocking is here Jesus knows what's going to happen. And he comes to Peter. Peter goes, "No, Lord, you're not going to wash my feet." He says, "Unless I wash you, you can't have any part with me." And he washes Peter's feet. Peter is about ready to deny that he even knows who Jesus is. Peter that night is going to say, "I don't know that Jesus." And he's going to swear 3 times, "Don't know him." And Jesus is on his knees, washing his feet. He goes around the table, and at this point in the story, Judas hadn't even left yet. So Jesus gets in front of Judas Iscariot, the man who's going to betray him. And he picks up his foot and he washes it. He shows his love as he serves his disciples. And then, After he returns the water and sits down, he says, "Do you know what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." If Jesus Christ loved Judas before the betrayal, surely you are not so dirty to experience the love of Jesus Christ. We're going to take communion, and I'd like you just to spend a moment pondering God's love in your life. We have the communion set up, and the bread reminds us that his body was broken for us, and the cup that his blood was shed for us, and it's next to the communion box at the table. And I'd just like to ask you to spend some time in prayer. Everyone's invited to participate. When your heart is ready, you can take communion.